Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. My name is Christine Rutner, and I am in the marketing organization with Lightspeed. And I'd like to welcome you today to the REPAY webinar. REPAY is our vendor payment automation solution that's within Lightspeed. If you can go to the next slide, please. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. It should pop up for you. And then we have John McFarland on with us from Lightspeed, who will be helping us answer some of the questions. Additionally, the webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to you within the next couple of days so that you can rewatch, share with colleagues, or just have the deck in front of you if you need a refresh. I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Spencer with REPAY. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. So I'll go ahead and start by introducing REPAY and myself a little bit. So I'm the Vice President of Sales at REPAY, and REPAY is a payment technology provider, one of the premier in the industry. So I'm not going to go through everything here on the slide, but we've got multiple office locations throughout the country. We were founded in 2006 and went public in 2019. We're an industry leader in many of the aspects of payments. So whether it's compliance, and we specialize in many different industries. So consumer finance, auto finance, account receivables, healthcare, and many, many other industries as well. But big aspects are we are definitely committed to providing our clients with innovation, reliability, and we're passionate about our customer service. And we're very, very committed to reducing fraud in the payment space. So for our dealership clients, and then simplifying the way those payments get made. A little bit more about us on the business to business side. We've got well over 5,000 clients, integrate with many different softwares, many different vertical end markets. So targeting in, power sports, marine, trailer, you name it, we're in it. We have well over 110,000 vendor relationships, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the webinar and what that actually means. And then we do $4.4 billion in payments throughout the year. So we know how to move money, and we move money very securely and effectively. Couple aspects that make us very unique in this space and why we're an industry leader. We use real-time enrollment and payment decisioning. And as I said, I'll talk a little bit more about some of these aspects later in the webinar. And we utilize bill pay networks. So as we pay vendors, we're utilizing what vendors are already accepting to make it really efficient. And then we do payments as a service, not just a single aspect. We're a whole service solution for you inside of Lightspeed. And then we utilize what we call representative assisted payments. It makes us really unique in this space, meaning we can put a human touch to make sure those payments are getting done the proper way. We can log into portals and things like that. As I said, I'll discuss a little bit more about that. But we'll go ahead and start talking about the Lightspeed process. That's why we have John here. So John, I'll turn it over to you and how you can show the Lightspeed process.
Sure thing. Thanks, Spencer. So a couple of the, just a screenshot here. One of the things what's great about REPAY is the lack of setup really needed to get this flowing. Once in Lightspeed, we've got there's a quick screenshot there of the pay invoices. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then you can you'll be able to see this really quickly here. 1 second while I share. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to see my Lightspeed screen here. As I was mentioning, one of the things that's so nice is the fact that we've integrated everything directly within our regular workflow. So those of you that are used to paying payables, invoices within Lightspeed are pretty used to this screen here. You have your pay buttons right up here. They've all been duplicated directly across into the ePay side of things to ePay the selected items. So rather than cutting your going through and running your check, doing your check run, going through ACH, whatever the most convenient process that you have going for you right now, we've integrated this with the REPAY side of things. So I come in here, I'm going through my my invoices. I select the ones I want to pay. I'll go ahead and just choose my ABC body and paint. I'll go ahead and ePay my selected invoices. Anything I have selected will go ahead and bring up the box to pay it. I just go ahead and click on pay, and I'll that pays my invoice. So as simple as that. Once I pay it, it goes over to the repay side of things. They capture the invoice payment information. They verify that everything is set up correctly. And then on Lightspeed, what you can do as well is, if it's really as simple as, one, we enter your credentials in Lightspeed. Two, you come into uh, your general ledger, your financial accounts. You tag which of your bank accounts are going to be used for repay. We got it right here. So I've got, just click that right there. That's all set up. And then I go into, once I have that set up, I can go in, and once I've paid my invoices, I can go into the individual vendor, just like any of our vendors. I can come in, click on this payments tab right here. I see, hey, this is great. This was submitted via ePay, electronic payment. I can tell my status as well. So I've got my status column, ePay completed. So I submit it. I click submitted, ePay completed, and then I'll get a response back from REPAY saying, hey, yep, this vendor was paid. You're ready to roll. Of course, if there are any problems with any vendors getting paid, or you're wondering on the status, you can come in here. If it doesn't happen to look right, REPAY is always available to say, hey, yep, that's been completed as well. But usually no need to do that, because directly right within the Lightspeed screen, you'll be able to tell any of the statuses and go through and get those areas taken care of. So again, simple setup. Once you contact REPAY, you should be operating within several days, which is a great. I mean, Spencer might go over that a little more, but once we submit something over from Lightspeed over to REPAY, they'll contact you right away, get the paperwork rolling, and in theory, you could be processing within a week once you've contacted them. So no more paper checks, no more having to spend time addressing envelopes, sending using postage on that. Everything's out there directly within the REPAY process. So again, not upset, a little bit sad, because there's not too much to show in Lightspeed, but it's also pretty awesome because there's so much they're so simple to set up and to easy to get going on the Lightspeed REPAY integration. So I'll send this back to Spencer now, so he can take over here. So
Perfect. Thank you, John. So let me share this again. All right. So with the integration being as simple as it is, it's definitely a great point for just clicking the ePay and it comes to REPAY. So what I want to talk a little bit about is what happens on the back end. So when you submit that payment to REPAY, what's actually occurring and what are the big benefits we provide? So we really like to talk about the security of payments. So there's a statistic here that you can see that 96% of all businesses last year were targeted with at least one fraud attempt. So AP teams are obviously a big target for those frauds, and about 90% of those attacks were successful. So that can be a check washing, somebody stole a check out of the mail or from one of your vendors. It can be a fraudulent invoice that was sent in with unique banking information. There's all sorts of attacks that businesses, that your guys' dealerships are getting targeted with. And so what we try to do at REPAY is minimize and mitigate as much of that potential risk as possible. So every payment that goes out, whether it's a check, ACH, credit card, have some aspects that could be potential risk. So when we talk to Lightspeed clients, as we're doing our initial, contact as say, hey, we're interested in something like REPAY, we talk to dealerships and find out there's a lot that are paying with checks, some are doing some ACH, and then there's a lot going out with credit cards today. And so what REPAY does is offloads a lot of those burdens from your team at the dealership. So if we send it out an ACH, we're doing the ACH validation. We make sure that the vendor filled out their proper bank information, that it's the actual bank for the vendor you want to pay. For checks, we use positive pay on the checks, which even if you're not using REPAY, I highly encourage you and your dealership to make sure you're using positive pay on your checks. Cyber attacks. It seems like every week we read about one major corporation or another that was hacked and all of a sudden credit card information was leaked or exposed. Home Depot or, certain healthcare industries. Just in the last few years, I've heard, stories about that. So we make sure that we are compliant with every security risk, SOC 1, SOC 2. We help make sure that your vendors, if they're PCI compliant when they're receiving credit cards, and then tokenization and encryption on each of those virtual credit cards. And I'll talk a little bit about virtual credit cards at a later stage that helps aid in that security aspect. And then invoice spoofing. So what we do is as we go to make payment, we give you time back to review each invoice to make sure that if they're sending over an invoice and, hey, here's our new banking information, you can actually verify it. By clicking that ePay button, you don't have to worry about stuffing mailing checks, logging into a bank portal to make payment. You click ePay, it gives you time back to actually do good work at the dealership to review invoices and make sure that the vendors are actually sending you the right invoices. And then illegitimate vendors and imposters. So this gets into the way REPAY makes payment. We will do outbound calling to your vendors. So not to get too ahead of myself, but when you click that button in Lightspeed and it sends over that payment to REPAY, that's the point at which our team at REPAY is going to reach out to your vendor. We have 2 call centers based here in the States. So one in Salt Lake and another one in Atlanta. And if you're paying that vendor, we'll call that vendor and say, hey, this is ABC dealership. We have this invoice. Can we pay you with a credit card, ACH, or check? And because we're doing that real-time enrollment, that live touch to your vendor, we can find imposter vendors very quickly. If that phone number is invalid or whatever it might be, as you've put in, a new vendor information inside Lightspeed REPAY, we're going to be able to detect that and find that. So we help protect each payment as it goes out through the REPAY system. Now, this is a little bit of a busy slide, and I've kind of hit on this already, but it's very simple and it's very secure. You at the dealership just click ePay on that payment or on that invoice, and all of that information from Lightspeed will flow to REPAY. We've got the vendor data, we've got the invoice data, and we can go and make sure that that payment is going to get paid. So you can see here on the right-hand side, all of the things that we do at REPAY. Real-time enrollment, we match the vendor's information to the information provided in Lightspeed. I mentioned RAP payment, stands for Representative Assisted Payment. Example I like to use is like a Comcast. If you have to call in and give them a unique phone number, we can do that. And if there's an exception, if a vendor says, we only take credit cards for less than $5,000, anything over goes by check, we can do all of that. We can handle all of those issues. You send it to REPAY, REPAY is going to get it paid. And if there is a problem or a concern, just like John mentioned, if you see that, it's still open inside Lightspeed, the vendor's calling you, our team is ready and willing and able to help. We've got a great support team, a phone number and an email that you can reach us from 9 a.m. on the East Coast all the way to, 7 o'clock at night on the Pacific time. We're going to be available. We're going to be able to help and answer your questions as they come up. So the other aspect of the system is modernizing and monetizing your payments. So as we pay, the first priorities that we try to pay your vendors with are a credit card and an ACH. So a virtual credit card is very, very beneficial in this space. It's a single-use card. It can only be processed for the amount of times that we specify, and it has a certain limit on that card. So those credit cards will be specifically tied to those payments. So rather than having one corporate card that gets passed out to all 150 of your vendors, you've got a single-use card that gets paid for each payment. It's highly secure, rather than having a single credit card number exposed to many different people, and then you have to look at that statement every month to make sure there's no fraud on it. That's eliminated with this virtual credit card process, and it's integrated inside Lightspeed. So you say, this is what I want to pay. REPAY can issue and create a virtual credit card and send it off to that vendor for that specific payment. It's effortless. You guys don't have to do any of that. The technology and the REPAY system does it all for you. And then anything that we pay on those credit cards, we will actually generate a rebate back and pay back to the dealership. So you can actually be earning rebates back as you utilize the system. And then if a vendor doesn't take a credit card or charges an additional fee, we can pay them with an ACH. And the ACH has a lot of benefits for some dealerships. We will actually provide some additional information on those ACHs so that they can reconcile those. That's typically the big issue with vendors accepting ACH is, hey, I just got a $5,000 deposit in my bank and I don't know where to apply it. That's not a problem with REPAY. When we sign somebody up on an ACH, we capture the information. And then as we send the ACH, we also send all of that remittance advice so they know where to apply it. They have the proper bank account, not bank account, I should say, but the proper account for you at the dealership. And we know it's going to the proper bank account. That's part of our ACH validation that we do. So streamlined reconciliation, digital payments. We're not waiting on the postal system. There's not lost checks in the mail. That's a big aspect of what we try to do is modernize the payment flow in the dealership space. So as payments are done, it's secure, it's fast, and the vendors like it. And then obviously you at the dealership can earn a rebate back on those payments as well. So finishing up here, as I said, it's going to be pretty quick, pretty simple, but John alluded to this as well. It's very easy to start with REPAY. You get the notification, we get the notification that you're interested. We'll call you within a day and we'll give you the understanding of how it all works. Can show you the Lightspeed's, screenshots, but it's very simple. We have an agreement with us at REPAY that you sign, and in that agreement, we've got a custodial bank account because it helps us. That's how we work with the funding and making those payments to your vendors. And then you just turn on that ePay integration like John showed, and then you can start processing transactions. So our average setup time is about 5 business days. And our statement that we like to say is by your next check run, we can be processing your payments. So you stop printing checks internally, start earning a rebate, and start making those payments securely. Kind of those big taglines that we like to use with the integration with Lightspeed. So that's all we have, but definitely want to open it up for questions like Christine mentioned. So are there any questions out there?
Yeah, one of the things as well I wanted to mention, just kind of loop back to Spencer is, one of the questions is going to be regarding cost. You touched on this briefly, but just for all those listening right now, the great thing about this is there is no monthly charge from Lightspeed, and in fact, as more people get onboarded with the virtual cards, you're actually getting paid to use the service, basically, because due to the fact that you're getting a rebate when those vendors do get a virtual card. So it's possible that you're of course paying on a. Maybe you can discuss what they are getting charged for, Spencer. I believe it's postage, the check fee, things like that. But when they do accept a virtual card, you're getting a piece of the pie there. So in theory, it's not only going to be much less expensive to do that way, but as you ramp up and get more usage here, in theory, you can actually you get paid for doing the REPAY service versus having to pay for it monthly, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up. So there is no monthly fee from REPAY or Lightspeed as part of this. And as we pay your vendors on a credit card, that rebate we generate back to you. And then we net out the fees of ACHs and checks. And so the check costs very minimal. We do a basic cost that includes the postage. And then for any ACH that we send out to your vendor that the vendor doesn't pay for, and you'll see a little asterisk down here that there are some types of ACH that the vendor will actually pay for because we can provide them some additional information, some additional value in that ACH. So there's 2 forms in rebate that you'll earn: credit cards and then vendor paid ACHs. And then as REPAY pays you back those rebates, we net out the cost of checks and ACH. And today, 99% of our clients are actually earning rebate that surpass the fee structure. So we don't have clients today that are paying us to use the system. They're actually earning rebate back as we net out the cost of ACHs and checks. So I'm glad you brought that up, John. Yep, should have addressed it.
Oh no, yeah. Let's see.
So there's
yep.
a clarifying question. Yeah, so there's not any fees to use REPAY is the clarifying question in the Q&A field.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, yeah, correct. There's, just to reiterate, there are no monthly fees, but yeah, as Spencer said, the only fees would be for the check charges and postage charges, and then ACH if it's non-vendor non-vendor pay. So yeah, apart from that, apart from any monthly usage charges, no, there's no separate usage charges for the integration between Lightspeed and REPAY. So,
Yep.
or for the REPAY service itself. Yep.
So there aren't any other questions in the Q&A fields, but we did get some questions regarding the solution that maybe you can just touch on for our audience today. One of the questions is, can you still use your own personal Amex card?
Yeah, so very common question we get. Yes, you can. So there are certain types of transactions that may not flow through the normal, call it invoice process inside Lightspeed, and definitely can use your personal Amex for those. What we try to hope and what we see when we talk to dealerships is that the system becomes so much more simple to use that some of those types of payments will be easier to pay through the REPAY system. But there are payments that you can continue to use your personal Amex outside the REPAY system. But if you're using the REPAY system, it's going to be a credit card issued and provided through REPAY. So REPAY can't use a personal Amex.
So there is a question that did pop up. Would we need to change our credit card provider?
So go ahead, John.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, nothing. Yeah, this wouldn't have anything to do with the credit card provider for, within Lightspeed. To get the rebate, yes, you would, the virtual card through REPAY would need to be utilized versus your own personal credit card. So that's where the rebate aspect comes into play. But as far as changing, anything within Lightspeed with regards to who you're processing through that way, no, there's nothing to change there. So
Great. Next question, how soon do vendors get paid?
Yeah, good common question as well. So with the custodial bank account, there is about a 2 business day delay. Then just, hey, I click approve and the vendor gets paid that moment. When you click approve, we will pull funds from the business account that you have at the dealership, move it to a custodial account. And then from that custodial account, when those funds clear and ACHs take a little bit of time, that's when payments will be issued by REPAY. So checks will get printed on that 2nd to 3rd business day. Credit cards will be sent and ACHs will be pushed out of that account. So there is about a 2 to 3 business day delay, which when you look at some of those digital payments I was talking about, credit cards and ACH, it's going to be much faster than just putting it into the postal service.
Gotcha. So another question did pop up. Since a lot of Lightspeed users have the same national vendors, is there a listing of those vendors that are accepting REPAY?
So yes, but no. So REPAY does leverage a lot of similar national vendors that are paid across, and we can give you kind of a listing of here's vendors that accept REPAY payments. But because of the way we do payments is very different than like a bank program or whatever, we're going to make a payment to all of your vendors, and we're also going to reach out to your vendors to get them paid in the way that makes sense for your dealership. So as a kind of example, there might be a national dealer or national vendor, I should say, that has negotiated a discount with your neighbor down the street at their power sport if they pay net 10, and you don't have that same agreement. And that net 10 is only good if it's done via ACH. So what we do is we create an individual relationship between dealership and vendor. And when we call and reach out, we make sure that we're not ruining that relationship between your dealership and the vendor. And we're also not assuming that your relationship is the same as another dealership. So if you can pay with a card, that's what we're going to do. And you're going to earn that rebate back, like John mentioned. But if your neighbor down the street can't pay with a card because of an agreement they signed, that won't impact your ability to pay that vendor in that way. So your relationship to your vendor will be maintained somewhat independently, but if you send the payment through REPAY, we're going to get it paid in the most efficient way possible.
I think another way to phrase the question would be, would there ever be a chance that the invoices you submit from Lightspeed would not be able to be paid by REPAY? And I think the answer is no. You're going to find a way to pay the vendor regardless, correct? I mean, you're not going to say, I'm sorry, we can't pay this particular vendor because they have these weird terms. No, REPAY will work with them to get them paid, correct?
Exactly. Yep. It's perfectly said.
Okay.
One other common question, if you could just maybe simplify or reiterate what the virtual credit card is and how that works.
Yep. A virtual credit card is a one-time virtual card, so there's no plastic to it, that can only be processed for the amount that REPAY specifies. Good example is if I'm making a $2,003 payment to Cintas, that credit card that is sent is a unique credit card number that can only be processed once for $2,003. So very secure, and it's a unique number that's only associated with that payment.
And you get a rebate if they do happen to accept it. Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. No other questions are in the Q&A field.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining our webinar today. I really appreciate it. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, my name is Christine Retner. We do have a partner page set up on our website for REPAY. So if you need additional information, feel free to go out to our website and navigate to that page. Again, thank you, and looking forward to working with you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Forgot to put that contact page up. So there you go.
Thank you all so much.